Howard has over 15 years experience in lean. Most of his experience is in lean product and process development. And I'm real excited about this topic. I can't wait to talk more about this. And currently he's, or recently retired from Caterpillar Solar Turbines down in San Diego. And Howard, you're in the process of moving up here, and you're going to be part of the Central Coast Lean community here in a little bit, right?
Yeah, actually, I'm up here. I think I'm going to be in my 5th place. It feels like I'm back in college, traveling from one bedroom to a garage to a kitchen to live. But yeah, we've been up here for, it's almost a year now.
Okay.
Looking forward to the house finally getting done.
Yeah, and so I want to warn or kind of give our heads up to our students. So I'm trying to get Howard sort of more involved in the lean community here to help sort of share his wisdom with you guys maybe more often, and just with different organizations and things that we got going on with regards to lean here in the lean community. So my ask of you guys is, you know, treat him nice, you know, throw him some softball questions so that, you know, he doesn't think that we're too scary here in the Central Coast. So Howard, good to talk to you. This is probably, I think, the second time you've been a lean celebrity for us.
It is.
But it's been a while. So I know you retired from Solar Turbines, but you know, what's your current position and relationship to lean? Have you sort of cut all the strings there, or are you still in contact with those guys, or you want to talk about, you know, how you left things? I don't know how to start.
Yeah, so yeah, literally my first day of retirement was July 1st. That's an interesting journey. You literally are going pedal to the metal all the way up to the last day, and then, you know, they grab your badge and your computer, and it's over.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of contacts, and so we stay in contact. I try to give them their space. You know, so they're accountable. But as far as lean goes, I'll certainly be involved in lean going forward. Like I said, right now I'm really focused on getting a house done and the move and stuff. But I threw my email there. I forgot the @ put a pound there. If you guys ever are interested in inquiring or sharing some of your experience or some questions or ideas, please reach out. I'm free. Maybe not to Eric, but to you guys, I'm free. So please do so. I'm involved from time to time in the Lean Enterprise Institute. Haven't recently since COVID, but I've spoken at conferences before and things of that nature. So I want to be involved in it. It's a great thing. It's probably the thing, you know, going into a career as a young engineer in 1983. I know your parents probably weren't even born then. In 1983, I wanted to design stuff for airplanes and spaceships and all, and I got to do all that. What I really didn't realize I'd stumble across in my career is really the development of how we do that and the processes to do it, how we work together, the tools. That's probably even more important than the technology, quite frankly. So I got bit by the lean bug in 1989 by a book that was written then in 1989-90. Does anyone know the name of that book? I'm sure Eric will give you some extra credit points. Maybe not.
Well, I'll give extra credit if someone gets the name of the book.
Get the name of that book, about
Yeah.
1990. All right, time's up. The machine that changed the world. So you guys have probably used lean over the last, 4 or 5 weeks, so you're nauseated. That phrase came from that book. That's where the phrase was coined. I won't get into much of the details, but it was a great book. It changed the way I saw things. And a couple of breakout sessions I mentioned, you're learning a lot about tools, right? Kaizen tools, value stream mapping, maybe doing A3s and workflow management and Kanban, and I can go on and on and on. But what really happens is after you use those tools for a while, and I sensed it in some of the breakout sessions, which is pretty exciting for me to hear, is you begin to learn to see the world differently, much differently. And you see the things that really go unnoticed, or what I would say, things that aren't even talked about. And when you look at, say I've been in the industry for 38 years, 3 different companies, I think it's 5 or 6 different engineering firms and engineering organizations and project management. And it doesn't matter where I'm at now. I mean, I can go into your classroom. I can go into, you know, maybe you guys work at a pizza place during school, or maybe you work at your family business insurance, or whatever it is. I'm cursed by this ability to see things that most people don't look for, and you're beginning to develop that. And it's to see the non-value add. When we talk waste, your customers of a process aren't going to be paying for your waste. They don't want to pay for your waste. So either they're paying too much, or you're not making enough because you got a lot of waste. So once you begin,
Yeah. Well, you know, Howard, it's interesting you say that. And I think, you know, that's so crucial. And these guys, you're right, they're starting to get a taste of it, and they're starting to see the lean, right?
Mhm.
But it's also a pretty lonely position when you're the only person in the organization that sort of sees the lean, right?
Yeah,
And we're sort of curious. So if these guys are talking to their moms and dads, and you know, how do they get the sort of the buy-in, or what do you do to, you know, show people or enable them to see also, right?
you know, and that's probably the biggest question. Some of you have probably had some conversations with your friends or family members, and they probably roll their eyes and like, yeah, okay, well, no, duh, that's obvious, or whatever. The same thing happens in an organization. Solar Turbines is an organization of 8,000 employees inside of Caterpillar, which I don't know, has got 80,000-ish employees. Yeah. And I joke with one of my former bosses who I worked with for several years on lean and transformation in his organization. And he used to send me texts, he says, Howard, and there'd be some explicit tips after that. You're driving me up the wall because I'm in quality console, or I'm this meeting or that meeting, and you won't believe what I'm seeing here. And I call it the girl in the room problem. So once you begin to develop an eye for this and recognize it and understand how significant these wastes and problems are, and you bring it up in a meeting, and you're the guy that's seeing gorillas in the room. And you'll hear the whispers like, there goes Howard again in his lean Kool-Aid, you know, the guy's whacked out. But it's hard not to continue to see those things. So how do you change that? You have to give people opportunities to experience it so they can see it themselves. It's very hard to preach it. I could preach it. I can give you some tips. I could probably ask you a ton of questions to help you take those blinders off and begin to see things differently. But I think the best way, and change management is by far the most difficult thing. I mean, it is brutally difficult, not only of an organization or a team, but of yourself. Yeah. And so awareness and being able to see it is the first step, and then being able to create moments for others to see it and for them to have their aha moments. And then you can build on that about what you do about it.
So Howard, one of the things that, you know, seems to do that really well in my experience is you invite somebody to participate in a Kaizen event, right?
Yep.
You know, and you know, I say, okay, well, we want you to experience this firsthand. You know, so the team is looking at a process, and they've got sticky notes on the wall, and they're identifying waste and pain points and those sort of things. You know, but some of these, for these students, especially working on their mini projects, it's not always accessible. That's not always accessible to them, right? So they've got to do the investigation. They're going to do the hard work of the analysis sort of piece of it. And, you know, then what do? They present it, or do they, you know, how would they? I guess, you know, one of the things is, you know, having some of the people that are doing the work sort of firsthand, you know, the firsthand sort of testimonial sort of thing, you know, that the workers appreciate, you know, the improvements or the ideas.
Yeah. So, and there's the one tool. I'm not a big tools guy, right? So you can hear this and go, good, I don't need to use the tools. We absolutely do have to use the tools. But you may not know how to use them yet. You're playing with the experiment. One of the best tools, and I think a couple of the projects people were talking about were improving the efficiency of a process, right? You know, whether it was at a mortgage company or wherever. Value stream mapping is an incredible tool to see what's really going on. That's the tool that probably gave me my biggest aha moments. I was a slow learner. I then did value stream mapping till I was blue in the face for 3 or 4 years. Then all of a sudden things just became just so insanely clear to me. And I thought, well, I'm an idiot. And that was my ability to see the girl in the room then. But value stream mapping, so what you want to do, and I'll take you through the process and then also how it affects people. If you value stream and map a process, and let's say there's 4 or 5 people involved in the process, who do you want mapping that process out? Do you want their bosses? Do you want their colleagues? One of their coworkers? Or them? You want them. You don't want their bosses. You don't want managers. Bosses and managers like to put down what's supposed to happen, not what did happen. And then when the individual puts down their stickies of what happened, I filled out the form, I submitted it to Jack, it came back for corrections and all. Just put down what happened when. And it's very non-confrontational, because quite often process improvement starts with confrontation. It shouldn't start with confrontation. It should start with understanding. And here's a key word, write it down in your notes. Everyone should come away with a common understanding. If you don't define the current situation, you don't have a common understanding, there's no reason to go forward, because everyone's going to come up with a different solution because they're solving different problems. But you come up with what happened when, and then you just educate them. Where was the rework? And they're only putting it in what's in their lane. Where was your waiting? Where was your pain, right? Where was your over processing? And this is where they get to vent. This process does this to me. It's non-value added stuff.
Right.
And then you get to do that future state thing. And then you make them a part of what are we as a team going to do differently? Now you're getting the ownership in, and you can get some empathy during value stream mapping, and you get some ownership and teamwork towards the vision. And then once you actually practice that and you have the gains, you've got that first huge step of change management in development of a lean thinking culture and values. Value stream mapping is incredible. You will learn a ton in it. It's difficult. It's hard. It's awkward.
And I agree with you. And I've used value stream mapping, pretty effectively, that way. But also for these folks, they're relatively young in their lean journey, right? You said like 4 or 5 weeks in, right? And they're just, their eyes are getting opened up. And I would point out that they could even get a little bit of that same sort of dynamic with even a simple tool like a Pareto chart.
Sure.
Right. So they're, and it relates back a little bit to my observation is, people remember, it only takes 15 minutes to fill out the form, or it only takes this. If you actually, collect the data on how many times, a defect happens, and then you put it on a chart and you show them the chart and they say their eyes open up as, wow, I thought that only happened, 3 times a month. You're saying it happens 25 times a month, or, and you feed that information back to them. That's another way to get sort of buy into the issue or the problem, right?
Yeah, and I think that goes to, we have an eye, and most everyone you're going to work with has an eye for the value added stuff. And as a human being, we like to suppress the pain. We'll talk about it when we're having a barbecue with our friends. I don't know, most of you are drinking age and having a beer and some tri-tip or whatever. And you talk about how your week was terrible. You don't talk about the value added stuff. Yeah. You talk about how the professor changed the homework assignment, you had to redo something. You talk about the pain in the process, or how a friend on your team didn't come through with the information you needed to do your part of it. So whatever will reveal the pain, where you can talk about the pain and the waste, is very, very powerful when people learn to see that. When you develop that eye, then the focus, the opportunity is more in the pain than the value added. Nothing wrong with improving the value added. I can guarantee you, all your processes, well over 90% of it, if you classify it as waste, that's a gold mine. But if you don't look at it, you don't, as Professor Olsen saying, you don't look at it, you don't track it, you don't document it, you don't see it. What you don't see doesn't get worked.
Good point. And I want to, at this point too, Howard, I want to make sure that our students know that, you're available to answer questions. I can sort of jump in, and Howard and I can talk about this stuff all day.
Yep.
But it's important that you guys get your questions answered and whatnot. So is there any questions from the students? that we want to talk about? If you raise your hand or kind of give a little signal or type something in the chat, we'll go ahead and we'll switch over to you guys immediately.
Yeah, please.
Otherwise, Howard and I will go on. So Howard, I'm gonna ask you a sort of a tough question. I know you're moving into a new house. You got these lean eyes and looking at the, the home building construction.
Yeah, we don't want to go there.
No, huh? It's not good, is it? It's not good.
I'll be honest, we're a year and a half in. It's been a brutal journey, and
yeah,
the people involved, I'm not going to be able to get them to see it. Right. Maybe, and please fire the questions at me. I want to hear some of your questions, and that old saying, the only stupid questions the ones that not asked. I surely mean that. So all of you right now are at the stupid question mark. Is you have to, when you talk about change management, you have to make sure that people around you are ready for it, right? So, and you can test that from time to time. You can feel it out. Be careful you're not trying to row your boat up Niagara Falls. You may look for a side stream, right? Look for the soft spots of the people or the organization, your bosses. You'll be working for people. Look for the opportunities. Be careful that you don't try to chisel your way through a granite rock, but be persistent, and passionate, right? Because nothing ever like this gets accomplished without those two ingredients. And the other thing is experiment. I mean, you've never done a value stream map, probably scares the crap out of you to do one. Yeah. You'll learn, and you'll be able to document that. And that's more important than being successful at VSM. So.
Right. Yeah, like you said, Howard, similar experience to you. It was probably 4 or 5 years or a dozen value stream maps in before it sort of the light bulb sort of goes off. So you got to get those first few out of the way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So Howard, one of the things that fascinates me, and I've really been interested in since I went to that Lean Enterprise Institute conference last year, we talked about lean product and process development. We've had some people. Oh, Molly Madden, please ask a question. Thank you.
Hi, sorry. My question is more of kind of like an advice question, just like for us, since we're going to be going into our careers, however many years, 2, 3, 4. But what is one thing that you wish you had kind of known at the beginning of like your lean journey that like you would tell yourself when you first started in your position?
Yeah, so if I went back and I had a conversation with myself, and I'll just go 13, 15 years ago when I got full blown into it, I would have tried to remind myself of patience. And it seems just cliche-ish. I would have reminded myself that the mountain I'm trying to overcome cannot be overcome alone. And another one I would have, and I constantly have to remind myself, and all of us, we're different personalities. So our journey is going to be different. And what it was important for me to learn, it may be just a natural reflex of yours. But for me, I'm a pretty darn impatient person. And I drive really hard. I have ambitious goals. Any of the teams I run, you talk to them, and Howard shoots for it, not the moon, the stars. He's going to some black hole. And that's a lot to ask, right? And I'm willing to experiment too. I'm willing to quote unquote fail. I prefer to phrase it as I'm willing to run an experiment and learn. But not everyone's that way. So you really have to have a sense of empathy for the people around you, and respect. And there's times that I've driven so hard that I've damaged those relationships. And by the way, there's a big waste cycle in that, because then you got to repair those relationships. And relationships don't repair. Sometimes they repair over a beer or a glass of wine, but usually they repair over a much longer period of time than that.
Right.
At the same time, if you really want to make an impact, you can't just sit there and go with the flow. And that's a choice you guys get to make, right? But if you want to make an impact and a difference, you need to experiment, you need to learn, you have to have empathy, you have to have persistence and passion, and keep going towards your true north. And your lean journey, I tell you what, each one of you probably got 30 to 40 years in front of you. You probably want to think 20 to 25, but you probably got 30 to 40 years of a career in front of you. That might be enough time to make a real impact. And that might sound disturbing. It's not. The last 15 years have been the best 15 years of my career, by far. I mean, I never saw this coming. And it was the most difficult 15 years of my life. But the impact that I've been able to make with the teams that I've led and the people I've worked with and my colleagues, and then being able to influence others around the industry, I tell you, there's no better feeling than that. You can't pay for that. When you really make a difference in the world, in your company, on your teams, and you're a part of that, it's all worth it. So empathy, respect your common man, but have a vision, be persistent, and be passionate. Otherwise, you're an observer.
You know, Howard, thank you for that. It reminds me of a lot of the way we talk about, you know, taking the long-term view in lean, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, you need to get results. You need to be persistent and you know, pull the value or whatever you want. But the same token, what you're saying about kind of trying to maintain those relationships at the same time. Because that's the long-term view, right? You know, you can get some short-term results by beating people up, but in the long term, you know, you want to make sure that those relationships are solid.
And something I think all of you online right now can think about. I'm sure you're going through this experience for the last year. You're on teams, right? You're even in little 3-minute breakout sessions. Think about the human dynamics between you and your teammates or classmates. Think about the tension that you feel at times, right? And the tension they may feel with you. Tune yourself in to you as a person and the people around you, because it's not going to be any different out there. Unless you're a one-person company, you're going to have those challenges. So, you know, have challenges with your own personality, you have challenges with others. How do you optimize that? It's tough.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So we got another Molly asking a question. So let's be the Molly night here. So Molly, go ahead.
Hi. I was wondering if you had like a specific example or like story, I guess, of like a major like difference that you made using lean at Caterpillar.
Yeah, a lot of them, fortunately. I'm going to tell a story of someone who worked with me. His name was Mike Jaskolski, another Cal Poly grad. And we do some hardcore rotordynamic analysis, highly technical, but there's a process of selling a compressor and seeing whether it's suitable for application. And at times this process can be quite arduous. And Mike and another girl in my group, Sarah Goucher, and a third person from non-customer services worked on this A3. The A3 was to improve the process of approving a program so we can speed up our response time on our proposals. This process, this A3 took over 2.5 years for them to get it done. Right? That sounds ridiculous, and it was ridiculous. And if you ask them today what the most difficult part of that was, what do you think their answer was going to be? You know nothing about the problem, but a 2.5-year journey. Where was the most difficult challenge? The people, the politics. A lot of people had some vested interest in what the answer was. A lot of people had some perceptions of what the answer should be. And none of them had a common understanding of what the real situation was. And they were productive data and information that allowed these people to get the facts and data. And there's a couple, 2 or 3 times there, I probably had to talk them off the wall and go out to the pub afterwards and, re-encourage them, keep going. I don't know where this is going, but keep it going. And then they had a breakthrough. And I don't have a picture. I wish I share you a picture of the breakthrough. They come into my office, Howard, we got it. We know exactly what's going on. The solution is obvious. And that was that aha moment I talk about, is when you really truly understand what is factually going on and all the pertinent aspects of it, which, oh, by the way, sometimes is really, really difficult to get, and you want to reflex to a solution. It was brutally clear and hugely powerful in changing how we did business. And just to see that, to me, coaching them through that journey. There was a couple on the journey, I thought I was going to lose them. Honest God, I didn't think they'd pick up another A3 again. But when they had that breakthrough and they had a huge impact on our business, and then they, they presented it to, I don't know, 80 PA people and customer service and everyone what they're doing, and everyone's like, oh, this is great. Now, of course, everyone looked at it and said, well, it's obvious. Well, after 2.5 years, it was obvious. 2.5 years ago, it wasn't. That was probably, my last 4 or 5 years, I'm more of a mentor than I am a problem solver. And some of you are going to be the bosses someday, and give this some thought. When someone comes in your office with a problem, are you going to be the boss with the solution? Or are you going to be the boss with the questions and the learning of where that person is on their development of problem solving? As a boss, first you have to develop great problem solving skills yourself, because you can't mentor people if you don't have those. But your job is not to provide the answers. And so for so many years, I thought I was a great mentor. I sucked at it. 99% of the people I find suck at it. When you, as a matter of fact, write this down, Toyota Kata. It's a great book by Mike Rother. Absolutely great, great, great book. Changed my life. There's what they call a kata there about, talking to people about problem solving is where they're at. So hopefully that answered your questions. I have a tendency to going off on tangents and all. But the greatest thing was just watching this group really go through a tough journey and come with an incredible result. And what they learned in problem solving, they really got it.
And just, so Howard, just trying to sync up with where we are in the class, so in this class, we do the, we call it Lean Six Sigma. So there's, certainly there's the lean piece, but we also use sort of the Six Sigma DMAIC process as our sort of problem solving structure. But for the purposes of the students in this class, you could sort of think of an A3 that Howard's talking about as being, if you had all the information from your DMAIC steps all on sort of one big 11 by 17 piece of paper that described not only the problem, but the measures, the root cause analysis, the potential improvements and solutions, and the control all in one piece of paper, that would be, the kind of magnitude of thing that Howard's talking about. So
what I find is, I don't know how many different problem solving things I've been trained on. The 5 whys, Lambda, A3, Dometic, Deming's methods. I can probably, if I thought about 10 different problem solving methods. Right. And the reality is they're really not that different. And some of them, quite frankly, aren't different at all. They just break it up differently. But what you really need to understand is, what are the values, right? So I can put an A3 in front of people. I've done it a million times before. And it's a form to them, and they just go fill it out. But if they don't understand why, and you're doing charters or whatever for the problem you do, why is that so important? And what are the signs when you start to develop solutions for your problem, where there's arguments at design reviews, or there's arguments amongst your stakeholders or whatever? Why are those arguments breaking out? Is it because you have the wrong solution, or you're all solving a different problem, right? And so I can throw all sorts of different problem solving formats in front of you, but what's important to me is you understand the principles and then the contributions of each of those sections, and why they're important, and what makes a successful part of that. And what are the signs when you haven't done that, where you need to back up? Those are the things I typically see missing. We trained over 300 years engineers on A3 problem solving. We had A3s popping up left and right. We didn't change anything we did about how we solve problems. We just put it on a small piece of paper, and that's not change.
No. Well, Howard, yeah, thank you. There's so many things here. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I hope the students, well, I don't know if I was as young as some of these students are and as early in my lean journey, whether they'd appreciate the kinds of insights and things that you're talking about, because those are insights that are based on 15 years of hard fought learning, right, that's happening, and they're just sort of starting out on their journeys. But certainly they should appreciate it, and they will appreciate it.
And I put my email there. I'm serious. If you guys are just want to bounce something off of me, I'm retired. I'm looking for something to do.
Yeah.
Be
Well,
prepared. If you do email or call me, I'm gonna probably ask more questions that I answer, but that's the fun part.
Yeah, well, good for you.